All right, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that we have Sydney Marr back at it again with another incredible video here to educate all of us when it comes to how Rinascita works. The timeline of the most viral region in Wuthering Waves history. And so with that, I'm interested in hearing what his thoughts are because he is an individual who does a lot of research. A massive amount of research on how all this stuff works, what the biggest problems in the region are, how they were created, and maybe what some of the solutions are going to be. And with us only in version 2.1 of Wuthering Waves, I'm sure that this is going to be an absolute banger. So with that, let's get right on into it.
So we've heard many different points of view talking about the history of Rinascita and the Sentinel Imperator.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things is a lot of people are kind of confused on the identity of the actual Sentinel, right? Whether or not we're being misled this early on in the story, whether or not like the horse is the evil one and the narwhal's actually the good one. That's like some sort of like theory crafting that's been going on around the community for sure.
We've heard the Imperator talk directly with Rover twice. We've watched the mural story. We've spoken with Lorelei, and we've spoken with Primus Fenrico. Although Rover is uncertain whether Fenrico is telling the truth, these stories provide different parts to the bigger picture rather than different views of the same story. So because there is so much to unpack, the best way to show all the information is to create a timeline. First half of this video, we'll be creating the timeline with all the surface level information from our different storytellers, and the second half will be filling all the information beneath the surface hidden between the lines. And this will be the juicier part of the video. To be clear, this timeline is creating the order in which these historic events take place, not the order in which we learn about it. And this will allow you to just cover what is said in 2.0 and avoid any details that may be revealed in future patches. So this is a spoiler warning for the second half information, and don't worry, we stay leak free.
I think a spoiler warning at this point is like, I mean, come on, guys. This is a spoiler warning for like the 2.0 story. It's been almost 2 months since 2.0 released. If you're not done with the story yet, just play the game. Just play the game. The 2.0 story quest is like a little bit long, okay? But it's a pretty good one. It's a pretty engaging one. It's been 2 months, just do it. Come on.
We stay leak free. Alright, let's begin. The first story came from a vision Rover experiences while being attacked by the Vetrium dancers under Frelova's control. Frelova's control ceases and the Imperator directly speaks to Rover.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
The first scene shows two divinities, a unicorn and a leviathan, and Cartathea, a resonator. 4 words are ushered out.
Command, unify, ascend, converge.
These 4 words highlight the main theme of this big story. The Imperator then formulates an actual sentence asking for Rover's aid in returning the lost to the earthly realm.
Aid me, O Arbiter, that we may return the lost unto the earthly realm.
2 things to note about this is that we do not immediately assume this is the Imperator talking, and we do not know if the lost refers to Cartathea and the Seraphim, or if it includes the group of people rounded up by this glowing rope. We can also see a feather, which is an indication of the Seraphim, and the same glowing power through Cartathea's chest, meaning this group of people and Cartathea are affected by the same power.
That was a lot to unpack in kind of like just that cutscene that occurs between like the Vitrium Dancer and Rover. That shit actually happens like in the first, I would say within the first 30 minutes of the 2.0 quest. And so it's really something that you have to like look back on after you go through all of 2.0. You take in all of the different clues. This is like a part in Act 2 that we're seeing over here. And so a lot of it is like foreshadowing that I think has gone over a lot of players' heads. I think there might be a lot more answers that are actually available to us that just haven't been like fully compiled until now.
The next story is from the murals that are closed to the public, which have been restored. And this provides us with most of the information about Rinascita's history. We begin with 2 divinities at war, the divinity of the sea and the divinity of the sky. When referring to a divinity, we are talking about the entity shown and their related principles, beliefs, or creeds. We'll call these entities divine beasts. The war between the sea and sky divinities was due to conflicting beliefs. One of the divinities is represented as a leviathan, ocean with a tacit core, signifying this may be a Thrunodian. The other divinity is the unicorn that does not have a fish-like tail but 4 hooves instead. During this war, both divine beasts were weakened and began to bleed. We are not sure if this is physical bleeding or a metaphor for losing their divine power. Regardless, the war between the two divinities came to an end by the TD outbreak known as the Dark Tide. This occurred 20 years ago. According to both the late Napoli
And 20 years ago, guys, if you aren't familiar with the overarching lore of Wuthering Waves, 20 years ago is actually around the time that Rover, I do believe, lost their memories. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe 20 years ago is around the time that like Rover did like their reset and was kind of like going around trying to like undo some of the damages from the Laments. I could be entirely wrong on that though. They were still the leader of the Black Shores during that time. It was a pretty tumultuous, pretty crazy time in Wuthering Waves history. Like a lot of stuff happened 20 years ago. That was expanded on in 1.3 with the whole Shorekeeper and the Tethys arc. So it seems like all of the events in the timeline are kind of like lining up.
According to both the late Napoli and Primus Fenrico, the Dark Tide's essence was from the blood or lost frequencies of the divinities. We can prove this is true from the mural itself. When the scene changes to the two divine beasts circulating, the background here is deep blue. If you pay very close attention to the sound, you'll hear the sound of a whale. Not that whale, an actual whale. This thing.
Sydney, you think Woo-Wop players are gonna know what an actual real-life animal sounds like? We're just gonna have to take your word for it there, buddy. I think he was talking about... I think he was talking about like the little like small humming noise that we were hearing, kind of like in the background over there, like the kind of like, woo, like that thing back there. I'm gonna have to give it another listen. This part over here.
This signifies the divinities relate to the deep ocean, hinting where the beliefs of the Order of the Deep tie in. The same blue background is consumed by a dark tide before being dispelled by Primus Napoli.
Now that I'm thinking about this a lot more, the deep is clearly representing like some part of like the ocean, like the dark depths, and getting this kind of imagery and thinking back to characters like Lorelei, I'm not gonna lie. When I look at Lorelei, I don't think Lorelei is a havoc monster. Let me just bring up a photo. I would not assume that Lorelei is havoc. She actually looks super similar to like Shorekeeper. You could get the vibe that she's Spectro, but simply like being this, you know, focused on water, this focused on like this idea of the deep, that's where havoc actually comes from. And you see the same exact thing with Cantarella, right? A character that summons like jellyfishes, like you see them in the cinematic trailers, you see them in her splash art, and she's havoc as well. And so this sort of like connection that they're making over here, where, you know, this is kind of like the forces of the ocean being dark, I do wonder like whether dark actually does mean evil here. And it, you know, we're getting all the vibes that everything related to the water is kind of like bad, with the whole Phasalia family being evil, but, right, and this is a big but, Lorelei is clearly like a good creature, right? Lorelei is clearly like somebody that helps us. We go on like adventures with her, we do exploration with her, and Lorelei's not bad. And then the dark version of Lorelei, which is not really Lorelei in the 2.1 quest, is just helping out Cetus. And Cetus is a nice guy as well. And so it's kind of just like, what is actually going on here?
By a dark tide before being dispelled by Primus Napoli. The second proof that the dark tide originated from the beast's divine blood is the blood shown during the mural story. The two divine beasts then become one or unify, becoming unicorn with a leviathan tail or a hippocampus. This hippocampus is implied to be the one divinity that Primus Napoli, the founder of the Order of the Deep, went to be with. So altogether, we have this divinity in the deep, which is the foundation of the Order of the Deep's creed, and we've seen from Black Shores that this horse has hoof prints going into water and a building underwater with a green symbol at the top. This next part is where there is plenty beneath the surface where we don't know what happened yet. We see the new unified divinity in what we call the deep. The mural story says that this divinity hath chosen their herald, who is the maiden that became the enlightened one.
The shattered divinity hath chosen their herald.
The enlightened one being the Sentinel Imperator's resonator. Enrico claims that Cartithia once again resonated with this divinity to martyr herself and seal the calamity known as the Dark Tide. We don't know if this means Cartithia had a second resonance awakening, or if she gave her powers back to the divinity in order to aid its recovery. We know that Kartathea is a martyr, which means she sacrificed herself for a divinity. We've seen that Kartathea is ensnared with a seraphim during
I mean, she looks like she's getting fucking killed here, but go off.
the first message from the Imperator. We also know Kartathea resonates with Trinodian power because of Rover's eyes showing the golden halos. If Kartathea had a second resonance with both the Unicorn and Leviathan power each, that would indicate she may have a second form, thus donning the name Kartathea. And
He brought the glue. Sidney Mar brought the glue, ladies and gentlemen. I actually do have to believe that, yeah, it seems like the more innocent looking form is the one that's the Thrunodian, and the evil looking form, right, the one that we're literally fighting, the one that's calling us Mighty Godslayer, the one that we throw in the trailer a like wit or like a slash at, right? We throw like a giant slash at her, and this one is the Sentinel, or they reversed. Very, very, very confusing.
and Fleur de Lis. However, we also know that after resonating again and sealing the dark tide, the divinity of the Order of the Deep was able to return to its true form and restore its lost divine power.
Then, the divinity shall return to its true form.
This does mean that to restore or recover, Kartathea had to have given her power back to the divine beast. So what really happened? This is a grey area we will try to solve with the second part. After Kartathea Fleur de Lis's sacrifice, Primus Fenrico states that he became the new Enlightened One. However, we do not know if this is true or not. Perhaps he may be the Enlightened One or Chosen One without the power of the Sentinel, because the Sentinel never truly got his power back from Kartathea to give it to the next person. Or perhaps the Sentinel received another power than its own and therefore cannot resonate with Fenrico. Again, this is a grey area. We'll try to connect the dots in the second half.
I think the one thing that's kind of like is the most gigantic cliffhanger that every person experienced across 2.0 was what exactly this fucking dude was even saying. Priest Fenrico. This guy over here was probably 1,000,000% the most confusing part of the quest, because everything that he was telling the player almost directly contradicted the entire storyline of the patch. It's like he was there to like actually gaslight us. But this is the thing. Rover themselves says that it doesn't seem like Fenrico is necessarily lying when he's talking to you. And so Fenrico is basically telling us a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense considering what we experienced, but he's also apparently not lying. I kind of wish we got more in 2.1. I kind of wish that we got a little bit more on 2.1 to expand on this, because it has been kind of like tickling our brains. It's been tickling our brains for a couple of weeks, if we're going to be entirely real here.
What's in the second half? The last time the Regonesi heard from the Sentinel Imperator is from the Laureate of the Last Carnival that occurred 10 years prior to the events of version 2.0. The final bit is also a bit of a grey area, and that is the appearance of the Sentinel Imperator. After becoming one divinity around the time of the Dark Tide, the appearance of the divinity was a combination of a unicorn and Leviathan. There are no wings or feathers. The divinity shown present day by the Order of the Deep includes wings and a tacit core on its chest. The wings, which would indicate the seraphim we've seen, which means that the one divinity here also needed to unify with the seraphim, or the seraphim's power, which led to it being ensnared. The only time we see the seraphim present day is with the yellow symbol at the top of these three symbols, and the wings when we're looking at the vault building. The green has been shown with the horse or unicorn, and the blue we assume with the deep ocean or the original Leviathan, thus implying there are three divinities, possibly of the sea, sky, and the earth, which is an accurate representation of how deities in Greek mythology are portrayed. The male deities control the sky and stars, and the female deities nurture the land and sea. But according to the Black Shores, the Thrunodian has been dormant in Rinascita, even though the Thrunodian frequencies in other countries have started to fluctuate.
The Thrunodian's revival in Jinzhou has triggered similar reactions in other countries, with Rinascita as the one exception.
Brother Man was fucking cooking. Brother Man literally fucking went back to the one. Okay, this was the start of 2.0, but it sounds like it was in 1.3. Went back to the literal start of the fucking quest to get this glue.
And according to this undercover Black Shores NPC found at the entrance to the Montelicorta during the night, the Sentinel Imperator shown by the Order of the Deep is strikingly different to the Sentinel Imperator recorded by the Tether system.
And as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, Tethys is kind of like the supercomputer, right? It's literally like one of the most accurate things that we have, like as leaders or members of the Black Shore, or just like the Black Shores as a whole. And it's like going ahead. Tethys is the thing that's going ahead and like calculating how to tackle laments, or like recreating laments like in its system to like find out the best ways to beat them. And if the information isn't really lining up, yeah, something's a little bit stinky, isn't it?
This leads us to the next message, which is after Rover receives the laurel and communicates with the Imperator. The Imperator says that it is ensnared in an inverted tower beyond the clouds and amongst the stars, watching over Solaris. The fact that the Imperator mentions Solaris and not just Rinascita already brings into question just how powerful the Sentinel Imperator is compared to other Sentinels. The other part that is in question is the fact that we can see an inverted tower in the sky already. One theory I have is that only Rover can see this, but we'll get to that in the second part.
That makes sense, because I think Rover was the only person in 2.0 who could see Cartithia. Because I think they had that scene at the end where like Cartithia's like doing like her Jesus water walk, and then like Rover walks up to her, has a conversation, and then like Carlotta just comes in like, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, you're talking to air, bro. Yeah, she just comes in at the end of the quest like that. So, yeah, maybe the tower thing is only for us as well.
There are also clouds that form a whale and the night sky in the number sanctum as well. Finally, we have Primus Fenrico giving his point of view, which Rover wonders if it is true or not.
What if the Primus's words were a bunch of baloney?
Fenrico claims that Fleur-de-Lis was not the real Enlightened One and that she was the Threnodian's resonator. There are signs that prove this is true. He also claims to have witnessed what happened to the Dark Tide and the sealing of the Calamity. He mentions that Cartithia sacrificed herself or martyred herself for the principles to seal the Dark Tide. This does mean he knows Cartithia's whereabouts. Enrico also says that the Sentinel Imperator belief is to unify all the people. To explain this even further, the reason why he enforces these beliefs so strictly and that there is the faithless that go on the pilgrim sale is because whenever there is that conflict in belief, that is what creates the dark tide or enables it to emerge.
You know, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I need to poll the chat a little bit. Do you guys think Fenrico is like actually evil or if he's actually good? Because just from like the vibe that I got from him, I feel like he's like one of those like good guys that's doing things in a bad way. He is, to me, one of the most like complex characters because I think it would be a little bit too on the nose for him to be evil. Because at the end of the day, the Order of the Deep is doing like all of this like fucked up shit in the story, right? Across all of 2.0, they are just like outwardly evil in so many ways, where like they did the whole thing with like Carlotta's family. They like ganked us when we were like with Carlotta, like going to even find out about Cartithia and like with the stained glass windows. They were just being like like they tried to fucking blow up the vault, like the Montelli vault in 2.1. That's an important story thing. Like, they made Phoebe like a suicide bomb. Not really like a suicide bomb, but like Phoebe brought in a bomb that was like about to like blow up like the Montelli thing. It's just like it's just such a like strange, it would be too obvious. It would be too obvious for Fenrico to be evil. That's my point of view. It would be way too obvious if Fenrico was evil, and I feel like he is gonna be like taking on like that bit more of like a positive role in the story. I think he's gonna end up like sacrificing himself to do something. I think like to show like his true intentions. That's what I think is going to happen, because otherwise it's just it's a little bit too cliche. It's a little bit too cliche if I'm being real here.
And this wraps up everything that's on the surface level for the timeline of Rinascita, but the juicier part is the second part of this video. Alright, let's start with the age of 1,000 islands, which was before the Dark Tide. During this age, the people of Rinascita began to rebuild their homes after it was lost to the Lament. They had boarded the Ark and traveled to establish what we now know as Raguna and a city we haven't seen called Septimont. Instead of having just 2 divinities, Rinascita had many tribes, and it was later revealed that it may have initially started with 5 tribes.
Nation of War! Sounds like Natland to me, buddy.
This is according to the essay of the Regenesi drama. The real-life inspiration for this may be from Rome's 5 Good Emperors era. These emperors were, as the title suggests, 5 emperors that presided over the glorious days of the Roman Empire. One of those emperors was Hadrian, who we know is a historical figure to Rinascita through Hadrian's gladiator image. This is also the first time
I'm gonna be honest. Is this in the game? Is this shit in the game?
Hadrian's gladiator.
Have any of us ever seen this? This is in the game? Why have I not seen this? It's in the Montelli residence? Okay. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more like front face. I feel like you have to go find this, okay? You have to go find this. This is not something that is like, that's like in the main story. You have to go find this.
This is also the first time the carnival first came into being. Initially, the people of Rinascita used to dress up.
Okay, you're telling me it's the training thing. Guys, I haven't done a training thing in like literally months. I get so many free shell credits. I get so much free EXP. I get so much free stuff from Kuro games. I haven't done a single training in Rinascita. Like, it's been 1.5 patches. I have not spent a single wave plate on the training thing. Not a single one. That just means I haven't had a resource issue, so I haven't needed to go there. It's not my fault. It's not my fault, okay? Shit.
Initially, the people of Rinascita used to dress up in masks and costumes to commemorate and communicate with each other and their ancestors. What's important to note here is that the carnival never originated from the Order of the Deep. It was formed by the people of Rinascita. And this ancient carnival allowed Rinascitans the freedom to praise whoever they want, and eventually these differences would fuse and unite under the Sentinel Imperator. The ancient meaning of becoming a laureate was also different from what is known today. Laurel was bestowed upon the person whose ideals aligned most with Rinascita's ideals and resonates with the Sentinel. Therefore, the chosen laureate becomes the enlightened one, the resonator chosen by the Sentinel Imperator. From this, we can develop the understanding that each divine beast possibly had a resonator known as a divine envoy, and the laurel was bestowed upon the resonator most in line with Rinascita's collective will. So do we know of any other divine entities? The answer to this lies with the 3 symbols shown here.
Right, because I think Sydney was just talking about how there are 3 full divinities. There are actually 3. And so we've kind of gotten like one figured out with the Sentinel and like the Laureate. And I assume, what if Cantarella's one? What if Cantarella is one and he's gonna mention her and she's actually like the water component?
The only time we see orange at the top is in relation to the seraphim wings. Green seems to be connected to everything with the unicorn.
Because just to play this back, right?
Green seems to be connected to everything.
Water, sky, and earth. I think that's kind of like the breakdown that he's going for.
And the blue with the Leviathan. The vision Rover has from the Imperator is the first confirmation that a seraphim did or still does exist. If you head to the Cathedral of Mercury or Hermes, reference to the Phoebe video, you'll notice the same 3 pillars next to each other. Outside of the cathedral, you can find the same center pillar with wings around them, but this is not where it ends. If you head to Averado Vaults and fly up from the centric construct, you'll notice the building has the same shape as the pillar with the seraphim, and the lighting in the clouds form the shape of the wings. So perhaps the seraphim was the divinity of the earth or land, making it a 3rd divinity and completing the inspiration from Titamancy in Greco-Roman mythology with deities of this.
Little do you know, Sydney, they're actually going to release a 4th one, because it looks like you only got 3 highlighted over here, buddy. What about number 4? What about Tartaros? What about tartar sauce, the underworld? What about a good old exposure to Hades? Let's go to hell. How crazy would Rinascita in 2.0 be if we actually literally go to hell? That would be nuts. I kind of want to go to hell. I would love to go to Wua's equivalent of hell. That would be fucking cool. That would actually be really fucking cool. Okay. God damn, that would actually be sick. Now that I think about it, it would be really fucking sick.
Deities of the sea, sky, and earth. To further back this, the building entrance has a pattern forming 6 wings, and the century construct also has 6 wings. Whenever we see the supposed Sentinel Imperator statue, which is the fusion of the unicorn and Leviathan, it is always near a body of water. This serves as proof that this figure shown here relates to the deep ocean. However, these statues also symbolize the lies or indoctrination that the Order are imposing. The ancient Renascitans built their statues out of bronze or copper. In real life, bronze and copper statues, which are expensive, sturdier, and can produce better detail, will form green rust when in contact with seawater or oxidized. So areas with these statues showing green rust indicates roughly when on the timeline they were built and how much exposure they've had to either the dark tide or seawater.
So basically, if the monuments aren't rusty, they're fake as fuck. If the monuments are not green and rusty and copper, they're fake as fuck, and they're actually just propaganda. I think that's the breakdown of it.
A possible indication that the sea level was higher than it is now and would explain the age of 1,000 islands. Then along came the indoctrination by the Order of the Deep, where they have the cheaper marble sculptures.
Bullshit. It's fucking... That's fake fucking news right there. Fight misinformation in Rinascita. If the monument is clean, if the monument isn't nasty as fuck, it's not real. It's complete bullshit. Fuck whatever this is. Fake as hell.
One of them even on a metal stand.
Unbelievable. Look at those wings. Pathetic. Tiny. Insignificant. Worthless.
Marble structures aren't capable of showing as much detail as a metal sculpture,
Go
so
off.
they are a bit faster to sculpt, helping the Order of the Deep to cover up whatever they want.
Damn, bro actually got into, like, bro started, like, TCing. Bro started, like, theory crafting the fucking materials that the monuments are made out of. It's like Shorekeeper versus Verena. Verena's like the marble statue that's a lot faster to build concerto on, but Shorekeeper's slower rotation and copper structure is a lot more has a lot more room for better buffs.
I think showing the indoctrination of the Order using historically and scientifically accurate materials is one of the greatest pieces of design in Wuthering Waves so far. So the closer we get to the present day, the more often we see these stone or marble sculptures even plated with gold. Gold would explain why there is no rust on the tacit marks of the older sculptures, or perhaps it was altered by the Order of the Deep later on as part of their propaganda. Gold does not rust, in case anyone is wondering. Okay, so this next part comes from the essay of the Rinascita drama as well, more so relating to the Golden Bow and Chronicles of Avenolium understanding of the Sentinel. Firstly, the Golden Bow is taking inspiration from a real-life book called The Golden Bow by Sir James Fraser. This book circulates around these studies of mythology, religion, and magic, whereas Wuthering Waves has taken a theatrical adaptation of this. There was
Wait, so this game is just Limbus Company. Raguna and Rinascita is just Limbus Company. Is that what we're saying over here? Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh man, Tectone's gonna love this one.
There are some scenes that may represent this golden bow in the sense of the laurel. It is a bit difficult to tell with YouTube's bitrate. The Chronicles of Avenolium is the more interesting one. We've translated the mentioning of Avenolium Theology Seminary in a previous video, which we now know is related to the history of Rinascita. But who is Avenolium? Well, there is no direct answer, but Avenolium may be one of the names of the divine beasts that were previously worshipped. Both these dramatic stories mention that the Sentinel Imperator had an oracle. Now this is massive in terms of historical relevance, because in Greco-Roman mythology an oracle, most commonly the Oracle of Delphi, was the middleman of communication between the gods and the people. The titan who once held this responsibility was Phoebe, the same Phoebe that
And that's why she can talk to echoes. That's why she's the only character. She is the only character on the roster that can actually talk to echoes. This is the thing, guys. I am like 99% certain that Phoebe has to play a massive role in the upcoming story. She has to play a massive role in the story. I think she might be one of the only, like, because she is literally able to, like, I mean, it's like Abby can talk, like Abby can also communicate, right? But I feel like she's gonna like gain like 100% like Abby's ability or something like that. And then we're gonna end up with like some whole breakdown of like how she's talking to like Imperator, how she's talking to Cetus at the same time. Yeah, maybe she becomes the new, yeah, maybe she does replace Fenrico. That would be funny. It'd be funny if she becomes the head of the Order of the Deep, considering that her character trailer is just her getting bullied. It's just her getting bullied by everybody else.
It is inspiration for our Phoebe. Our Phoebe goes one step deeper to use a staff, which is an adaptation of the Caduceus from Hermes or Mercury, which may be one of the ancient relics that the representatives of the different tribes carried in the Chronicles of Avenolium. So this may indicate that Phoebe is the true enlightened one, or at the very least
Not pre-watched, by the way.
a divine envoy, and this backs why Phoebe can understand echoes, which are the divine emissaries of the Sentinel Imperator. Well, what does that mean? Because our understanding on a surface level is that there is only one resonator of the Sentinel. This final segment is developed from the Codex and Cristoforos' Blessed Maiden play. The Codex states that the Sentinel Imperator's true form has never been seen. Remember that this Codex has not been written in the present day, so anytime from the date this Codex was written to now, now, the Sentinel Imperator could have revealed their true form. The Codex also mentions that the Sentinel Imperator has the ability to split, meaning that the divine entities of Rinascita are parts of the Sentinel Imperator. The word Imperator itself means one above all, so the Sentinel Imperator is the one above all Sentinel. But since Sentinel and Threnodian are opposite sides of the same coin, it's possible that the Imperator can split into Threnodian, which explains how the blood of the Sentinel created the Dark Tide. To overcome this dark tide, Fleur-de-Lis martyred herself. According to Cristoforo, whose story may not be an accurate representation, Fleur-de-Lis never claimed to be the Enlightened One. She was compared to being the Enlightened One by the Acolytes, but just because she's not the Enlightened One doesn't mean she did not resonate with a Sentinel, because she is still mentioned as a divine emissary. During Fleur-de-Lis Cartithia's final moments, she is said to have journeyed eastward to the high heavens in the mist to form a shared bond with them to seal the dark tide. The fact that Fleur-de-Lis never stated Sentinel and immediately used pronouns already suggests Fleur-de-Lis's resonance may have been with the Threnodian.
So the idea is that, the Sentinel Imperator was essentially the Sentinel and the Threnodian combined, like as the divinity. And then they split into the Sentinel, and then they split into the Threnodian. And that caused the Dark Tide, all the bad shit happening. Fleur-de-Lis, or Cartithia, goes in, she tries to like save whatever is going on, and she ends up resonating with the Threnodian part and then reunites it with the Sentinel piece. I think that's kind of like where we're getting towards. She resonates with the Threnodian and then reunites that part with the Sentinel, and then that's how the Dark Tide gets resolved. I think that's where he's getting to here.
While Fleur-de-Lis was trapped in the abyss for 3 days and 3 nights, she saw a glimmer of light that told her she needed to do this. Now, this statement itself has massive real-life connections. In Roman history, mythology was the core of religion until it was replaced with Christianity. In Christianity, 3 days and 3 nights is symbolized in 2 areas.
Jesus.
When Jonah entered the whale and when Jesus died, spending 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, which is understood as the grip of the enemy. Kuro may be taking inspiration from this by combining the two, portraying Fleur-de-Lis as the martyr for Rinascita and spending 3 days and 3 nights in the abyss, which could be within Cetus. During Fleur-de-Lis's
Within Cetus? So she got fucking 8?
final moments within the earthly or mortal realm, Primus or Priest Fenrico at the time was the last person to see her. According to Cristoforo, Fenrico was a priest at the time, not the Primus, stationed in the direction Fleur-de-Lis had to travel. So Primus Fenrico's story and accounts to Rover by the end of 2.0 are in fact true that he was a witness to the final moments of the Dark Tide, but it is clear he has omitted the details of these events that would motivate him to later bring a halt to the carnival 10 years later. Now the question is, where does Cetus, the inverted tower in the sky, Inohom and the clouds with the whale come in? Well, since only Rover was able to see the Lost Walk briefly amongst the crowd, it is possible that this tower does not exist in the mortal realm of Rinascita. Perhaps only Rover can see this inverted tower. There is an NPC outside Lolo Logistics that mentions a city in the clouds, but this may not be connected to this here in Rinascita. If it is connected to the inverted tower, which isn't exactly a city, then it would prove that not only Rover can see this.
I'm not sure how much I like necessarily in the story, so much stuff that only Rover can see. I am curious as to like how that would be explained, because they've already done it once with Cartithia, and I have to imagine, right, that she will have to be revealed to the rest of the roster, right? And if it's kind of like, oh, it's like hidden in plain sight sort of storytelling, that is like a little bit, that's something that could definitely get old fast. I kind of hope that this whole city in the sky thing isn't something that only we can see. I kind of actually hope it's something that everyone can see already.
What I'm sure all of Rinascita can see is the whale cloud. We know that there was previously a sky and sea divinity, so with there being seraphim and horse or hippocampus statues signifying their respective divinities, there is a possibility of the Leviathan or Cetus being the current divinity of the sky. To explain this, we assume that the Leviathan is Threnodian. The Threnodian became dormant after the unity between the sea and sky divinities, but may have had a primary weapon like Overthrax had the Dreamless. Thus, the theory of Rover's lost frequencies remain accurate, as Cetus and the horse have been around Black Shores. And if you aren't sure about that, then here's the rundown. Rover had all the elements upon entering this timeline of Solaris 3.
Okay.
Upon landing in the Upside Down Sea, Rover released 5 particles of remnant energy. We saw one travel to Overthrax, and we later received Havoc.
So we only retained Spectro.
Saw one travel to Overthrax,
That one goes over to Jinzhou. I assume this one's the Rinascita one.
and we later received Havoc. So for Rover to obtain their next power, they would need to retrieve and reabsorb that remnant frequency.
I mean, that's literally the direction of Rinascita. If this is Jinzhou, that's actually the direction of Rinascita on the map. Because remember, we're upside down here. We're upside down here, right? And Rinascita is to the right. And so the left over here is actually to the right on the map. And that's exactly where Rinascita is.
The only problem that remains is we also have
1.0 cutscene, by the way.
Kinohom, who is the Dragon of the Dirge. Kinohom is his name, which is the Hebrew name for the Greek Gehenna, which means a place of hell. The Pilgrim Sail is meant to be a journey of absolution for transgressors. Both the Order of the Deep and historical essays state that the Imperator was at the end of the journey of the Pilgrim Sail. So this power of absolution and judgment, or Decustis, has to relate to Rover's remnant frequency that was released. But since there are multiple divinities, it's possible that Rover's remnant frequency has split and has the ability to unite, just like the Imperator is able to split and unite. That was an insane amount of detail to uncover. This is probably my 3rd or 4th iteration of writing the script, because I had to make it cohesive and connect all the dots with information stemming from different sources in game.
I gotta say, I thought that this was actually one of the easiest Sydney Mar vids that there ever has been to follow. I think the fact that he kind of like went back to like these same like repeated like kind of like the same graphics over and over, but then just added on stuff actually made like the whole timeline way easier to understand. And I'm gonna be real here, right? I was like, you know, considering some of like the past vids that we've seen from Sydney, I thought that this was gonna be like some massive fucking like incredibly crazy lore dump, but no, bro, this is actually, I think, bro's best video yet. I think this is 1000% the best video that Sydney has ever made, genuinely. And the ease with which he made it to understand like the pacing and the flow of the information, absolutely fucking hit it out of the park with this one. This one definitely needs more fucking views, because the amount of information that you get on Rinascita and the breakdown of it is quite literally fucking insane. And the way that he's worded and framed the stuff together, you can like draw your own conclusions based off of your playthrough. Awesome.
This is probably about 50% of Rinascita's details. The other 50% will be covered in shorter videos that are more focused on singular topics. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you in the next video.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, low-key, this vid and watching this vid has gotten me so hyped for the next couple of Rinascita patches. It's insane. And it's added like so much more depth to the story that I know is gonna be explained later. But this alone has like, yeah, this has made me more hyped for Rinascita than like some of Kuro's fucking promotional materials. So yeah, no, this was just great. This was awesome. I've already gave you my thoughts on this thing. Make sure you guys give this guy a sub. Make sure you like this video, do all of that great stuff, because this content is absolutely fucking insane. Let me drop the link for you guys as well. But with that, let me know what you guys all think. Peace out.